Hi, I'm Amanda Breeze from the Smoking Spot podcast.
I'm Mary Jane Baker, and I'm one half of the Newbie and the Doobie podcast.
Hi, I'm Winnie Clark, and I'm one half of the Disciplined Stoners podcast.
Hi, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Jolene.
And we're Blunts and Beans.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Amanda.
And we're Hi Ladies Podcast.
I come out from under the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff. While you're breaking me down, you can feel your fingers stick.
Today, to celebrate International Women's Day, we've gathered a group of women in Canadian cannabis, media, and podcasting together. And I'm so excited because we all work in the cannabis and media space, but all come from different sides of it. Wellness, mindfulness, events, news, entertainment, science. Like, this group actually covers it all. So I'd love to go around and have everyone introduce themselves and their show.
Okay.
Hi, ladies.
What a smooth start to the show.
That's it.
I'm Annie.
And Amanda.
And we're the Hi Ladies Podcast. Podcast has been going now for just over 3 years, just over 100 episodes. And over that time, our focus has sort of changed, as things will over time.
We've been finding our footing in cannabis activism and learning how to navigate the political space. That has been really interesting for us.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Winnie. I'm with the Disciplined Stoners podcast, and we are the gateway drug to mindfulness, and we talk about how cannabis and awareness go hand in hand and how you can cultivate a deeper relationship with yourself using both cannabis and mindful practices like meditation.
Hi, we're Alexis and Jolene from Blunts and Beans, co-founders of Camp Canada.
We advocate for dignified consumption, elevated social responsibility, and education for the consumer by hosting events that focus on culture and connection within the space.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Baker. I am one half of a cannabis podcast called The Newbie and the Doobie. I'm the Doobie. I've been in the advocacy space since 2014, so I'm celebrating 10 years this year. And I'm also an entertainer and artist. And my God, I wear so many different hats. It's hard to juggle them all sometimes.
And I'm Amanda Breeze. I'm from the Smoking Spot podcast. I'm also missing my other half today, but it's kind of nice to just be in the all girls crew. So I'm really stoked we're all here. Today we're going to get into some like heartfelt Women's Day moments, but I just feel like our little roundtable probably has more cannabis knowledge combined than most boardrooms. This week had some really big news in cannabis. As Canadian content creators, we're all used to legalization here. We've kind of had a leg up from all the non-legalized countries. So how do you guys feel about this big move that Europe is moving towards legalization?
Obviously huge success for us, and the Canadian industry being able to potentially do more overseas. You know, I think that could help growers and licensed producers. So that's cool. It just couldn't come fast enough. Like, that's where I'm at, where I'm like, yes, next. Who's next? Like, it's almost like I'm not stopping to celebrate, which you should celebrate each and every country becoming legal, because it's going to be such a step forward in an interesting economic boom when everyone gets on board. So I'm excited.
Well, how's your German, Winnie?
I'm Dutch.
I had a meeting this morning about translating the aroma wheel into Dutch, because that's, we're looking at making some moves into non-English content to support our neighbors.
That's really cool. It's not fully legalized in Holland yet. It's decriminalized, which is so fucking weird. It's like, hey guys, get on board. Also, like my mom, I'm very Dutch. Like my roots, like if you go up the family tree, it's like Dutch. And my mom somehow was shocked that I got into weed.
We actually had a woman on the podcast.
We had Anna Sophia Cooper-Annis.
And she's the head of the Bloomwell Group. And this was a few months back when they were working through the legislation. And it was a really interesting episode because they did borrow some of what Canada has done, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And the system that they've come up with is very restrictive, is the best way to put it. And it will definitely create a tiered system. It would be a lot of money to be part of these cannabis clubs that will have to grow their own cannabis. It's a thing. So they're doing it.
So for me, like, I'm really proud that Germany has looked to us and said, we like these parts of the Canadian model, we dislike other parts of the Canadian model, but recognize that the legalization of cannabis means tax dollars that can be used to fund everything in the country, any and all services.
And I think Anna Sophia said they're only going to have a few dispensaries, like 4 or 5, and it's like a pilot project.
Yeah,
everything else is being done through these clubs that have to grow their own, or through medical cannabis. And she saw or foresaw that a lot of people are going to get on the medical cannabis bandwagon in Germany because that's where the access will be.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
With Germany legalizing, like, yay, another country, that's amazing, because in my opinion, there's too many countries that I can't go. Like, even in the States, there are states that Timmy gets a gig down there and I have to Google, like, what is the cannabis laws in, Ohio? Can I go with him or not? Because as a medical patient, it limits the ability to access it. And touching on what you guys, the high ladies, said with the access where there's only going to be like limited amount of dispensaries, it kind of reminds me of Ontario's early days where they only allowed 25 licenses, and they still had the medical program at that point, which was still bigger than the rec program. I don't think that's the case anymore, but they are sort of following in Canada's footsteps. We'll see how that turns out.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely taking it slowly and cautiously.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to add here how Germany is allowing for public consumption as of April 1st, which is a huge win. But I think that Canada has a lot to learn as well. There's still no public consumption nationally, like federally throughout Canada. It's federally legalized, but only BC you're allowed to consume in public. So that being said, I think like where Canada's trying to position itself as a global thought leader in the cannabis industry, we're really missing steps here. And I think that that's something that we really need to be focusing on, is creating safe spaces for people to consume. And I think that we can learn a lot from Germany. When they're opening the door to cannabis, they also open the door to tourism at the exact same point.
Wait. BC, are you saying BC is the only province that you can legally smoke anywhere outside?
So anywhere you can smoke a cigarette in BC, you're allowed to smoke cannabis as of like a week ago. And also retailers are now allowed to promote those spaces for you to go and consume. To me, it's like backwards. It's a federally legal, product. Like, it should be federally legal to consume it.
Or grow it.
Yeah, different. Even Manitoba, it's like a $250,000 fine to grow a plant. Yeah.
Yeah, Manitoba has been so shocking to me. I don't know if you guys follow the Toba Grown crew, because they've been in a legal battle, I think, for the whole time, 5 years now, because they can't grow there, which is also just so, to me, that's very like, how do I say this nicely, American, where they're like, oh, this place gets this rule, this place gets this rule. But the states have a different setup for government that we don't have. So it's actually really crazy that Manitoba has made this like firm and hard punishment-based regulation to discourage people when we're federally legal. And I think that's very confusing to the global community as well. One thing I really noticed last summer traveling around Europe was like, a lot of people don't know weed is legal here. And that's like a huge piece of the tourism pie, which tourism is a big piece of the cannabis pie, because we want people to come here for it. And so to not have done that big promo of like, come smoke pot in Canada, and for it to have made it to the stoners who travel in other places is like, was so crazy to me. Telling people, well, we're smoking a joint in a completely criminalized country. Hey, why don't you come to Canada and smoke there? And they're like, what?
Yeah, why do you think that is the case? What's happening there? Is that because we can't advertise it?
I genuinely think, obviously, marketing plays a huge role in the challenges that we face here, which is why I love that all of us kind of roll around in the media, because people are getting news from our sources and from us. We're the source. But I just think that because of how legalization rolled out with such restrictive regulations on consumption, literally the whole point of the fucking plant is to consume it. So to have these crazy regulations, why would people come here? Like, they're smoking weed in fucking Slovenia because it's, even though it's illegal there. So why would they come here to just also hide in someone's basement or garage and rip a doobie? Like, they're doing it there already. So I don't think it really made it over there because it's not really that exciting if you think about it.
Well, yeah, because it's not like we can show or advertise us celebrating having fun with cannabis, because we're not allowed to show that cannabis and fun correlate together. Like, we can't promote those two things. It's kind of like those cigarette advertisements where you see the guy on the horse and he's got the beautiful woman, and they're like, oh, if I smoke those cigarettes, I can be like that guy with that woman. It's not like we're saying that with cannabis, but because maybe we can't show anybody these things, people just assume like we are hiding out in a garage what they're doing in their country because they're hiding from the police. Like, even, I just want to say, even still, I still get PTSD sometimes when I have a doobie and a police officer comes by or whatever, because it's like old school ingrained. It's deep.
Totally. I when it first became legal, like it felt kind of cool to like smoke on the street for the first time.
It did.
But I still got so scared. Like, I remember this literally happened. Okay, so we're at you know that restaurant where you it's like lobsters and they don't let you have utensils. You have to eat with your hands. Have you ever heard of this in Toronto? Okay, I can't remember the name. We're at that restaurant. Okay, so you have to go wash your hands to like go smoke a joint or whatever. So I'm out smoking a joint. Literally 2 cops walk by. They just walk by on the sidewalk. They're not bothering me. For some reason, my social anxiety like kicks in and I go, it's legal now, to the cops. And they look at me and they're like, yeah, and keep walking. And I'm like, why did I do that? So yeah.
Way to out yourself as an old stoner. Like, I'm not illegal. I'm not criminal now. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Crossing the border has me really paranoid. I go to the States a lot. And so when I worked in the black market and I was traveling back and forth, I had 2 phones. And my phone, I would literally take the battery out, hide the battery on one side of the car, hide the phone on the other. I would take the pieces and split them up. I would delete every photo, everything. I have so little documentation of black market cultivation days because I was so scared of getting caught. And even now, when I enter the States, I have the same problem because I don't want them to know that I work in weed. Like, you really like, it's so chill here, but as soon as you go somewhere else, like, my paranoia is so exponential. Even though I know that border services knows that it's legal here, I'm not bringing weed, but just the idea of being associated with it still feels like a punishable offense in other places.
Well, it could be. There have been, like, even a pharmacist who works in the cannabis space will not take, like you're saying, he has a separate phone. He won't take his work laptop. He won't have anything that has cannabis, anything on anywhere, because if they have some reason to stop and question you, then it becomes an issue. And it's just a headache you want to avoid.
Yeah, just because it's legal doesn't mean that there's not a stigma and judgment still attached to it. So if we really want to see these laws and rules change, we have to educate people and we have to normalize.
It goes back to Amanda's question of why do people around the world not know how, free and open cannabis is in Canada. There's such restrictive rules around being able to advertise, being able to promote. We're all in a unique position that we can say whatever the fuck we want. But these businesses have their hands tied. and they can't, put out an ad in a travel magazine.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do what traditional businesses would do to promote themselves. They've been told, you can't promote yourself at all. We're going to make the packaging as ugly as possible. Nobody can see into the stores.
Well, even outside of that, like if you think of a tourism place, like a classic tourism place, let's like use the alcohol model and say like you've got a farm gate location that you want to go
like
Canja, like
here in Barrie,
Canja plug, and try some beautiful high ladies cannabis. When you get there, there is so much liability that potentially is there, right? And that's what these big insurance companies are worried about, and that's what lawmakers are worried about.
But the winery can advertise.
Thank you for finishing my point. That's exactly what I was getting to. But nobody fucking questions me if I go to a vineyard and I drink 4 glasses of wine. There's not a cop sitting outside waiting to grab me to check my blood alcohol level.
Well, not to mention you just walked through all of the vineyard and there was no, you didn't have to wear these protective suits and you didn't have to go through a special clearance. You could have just picked a grape right off the tree. Like when you talk to really old people, they're like, yeah, well, don't you remember what it was like back in the day when we first got to buy alcohol? And I'm like, no, because I wasn't there. Yeah. And they're like, it was kind of like you went into this room and there was a board of all of the different alcohols and you just had to write down what you wanted.
Yeah.
It's not like what we have now where you walk into a liquor store or beer store and grab a case or grab a bottle and fill your cart. So my hope is as time progresses, people are going to take down the wall coverings on the windows. We're going to be allowed to take our child in a goddamn stroller in the store because it's safer than leaving them outside the store in the car. There's so many rules that I'm like, hopefully, with time and with people like us, keep pushing, going to things like the Global Marijuana March, which my assumption is because it happens global, the first Saturday in May, all over the world, that there's got to be one hopefully close enough you can make it to, and make your signs of whatever it is that you want to see changed within this space and show up and make a difference because it's going to take a lot of time.
I'm making a note.
I think that's why it's so important to know how the act and regulation breaks down, whether you're a retailer, an LP, you're trying to host an event, because while they are very, very restrictive, there is still a path you can navigate through there. There's, the little baby loopholes like 18 plus establishments. You can show up and be loud and proud there. But it does make it hard for those people who do still feel the stigma and they're a little worried about leaving their email when they go into a dispensary, if they even will step foot in the dispensary. And so I hope we can grow further, but we're getting there slowly.
Well, even just like Jolene was just saying, with pushing within the boundaries of limitations and the rules and regulations, Katy Perry in Toronto, who owns Toke Cannabis, is very vocal about saying this. They said in the rules and regulations that we could not have product visible from the window. They did not say we had to cover our windows, but somebody somewhere went, oh, let's cover the windows. And that was maybe it was the cheapest, easiest solution, but there are ways to work within the rules, within the regulations, whether it's an event, a store, whatever you're doing, you can find a way to make it work. It's kind of like why you hire an accountant. Find those loopholes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are finding that the only way to operate is in the slight variations of gray.
Yeah, slight. Oh my God.
The many tones of the white to black rainbow.
There's a 50 Shades of Grey reference here, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Oh, there you go.
It's about as pleasurable too.
I think it's also important to note that when you are operating in the gray, that you collect data while you're there. This is something that when we first started Blunts and Beans, we wanted to open a coffee shop. So I called up AGLC and I was like, hey, I want a coffee shop. And they're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And I was like, well, why not? And they're like, well, we don't know what happens when you serve cannabis to somebody. And there was really no truer statement from the government ever, is that you genuinely don't know. You don't have a clue. And so here I'll operate in your framework and I'll gather data so that I can provide you what exactly happens when people are, congregating and enjoying cannabis together. And it doesn't, when you provide them the data, and you're like, here, I'm trying to help you bridge the gap in legislation, it's a different conversation than being like, well, I'm in the gap. Like, I'm not breaking any rules. Like, and I think that that's the only way that we can actually achieve change, is being like, hey, I understand that, we're not fully educated on this. Here's some education because we're following the rules as far as we can, but we understand that there's gaps, and here's how to bridge that. And it becomes a more open dialect with your governing bodies.
That's so responsible of you.
Well, to have any kind of change, you need to have quantitative data backing you, because we could sit here till we're blue in the face and be like, it changed my life. But where's your proof? Can you put something on paper that gives you proof? And then to be able to send that as that data, now you have backing. And we can start moving forward in our change and education. And you'll see that in many industries. Like if you have a breakdown in your process, you reevaluate where it broke down and how you can build forward through your data.
Absolutely. And, I think because if they genuinely don't know. So the imaginations run wild. And if you're basing all of your regulations off of alcohol, it's so different. So if you have 200 people camping for a weekend and a ton of free booze, things are going to get really out of control. But that's why I loved that one of the facts of Camp Canna, part of your data set, is the last Camp Canna, you had one incident and it was a scraped knee. And it's like we had 200 people camping in what could have been a fire festival scenario with absolute chaos, but it literally wasn't. And everyone was fine. And one person scraped their knee tripping during softball. And that was a whole weekend. And you hand that over and they're like, wow, nothing really happened.
So our data suggests that softball is more dangerous than cannabis at this point. However, most softball tournaments come with a liquor license. Fun fact.
I do really like, though, that now that legalization has been 5+ years, we are seeing actual data come in. And the data is saying the more that cannabis sells, the less alcohol sells. That hospitals are not seeing an uptick in cannabis-related injuries or psychosis. That the police are not seeing an increase in impaired driving with cannabis being the cause. And that's all really positive for cannabis.
Fun fact, the Edmonton Police Services allocated a bunch of money when cannabis legalized towards the police department policing cannabis incidents, and they didn't have to access any of it.
That's awesome.
That's so good.
Yeah, that's funny. That's speaking of useless spending and data, we also got data that our government has to destroy, what was it, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of cannabis because they don't know what they're doing. And I'll never forget my dad, because he's like, so I don't understand why they're destroying the cannabis. So like, what's wrong with it? And I'm like, well, there's not necessarily anything wrong per se with it, but it doesn't meet the guidelines within the rules and regulations to actually make it to market. And he's like, but can they just like give it away? And I'm like,
that's a bad business model.
There's no taxation in that.
It's not how it works, Dad. If they did that, then nobody would buy cannabis. Like,
it's so true. I mean, I think it's interesting because yes, like we're all women in business, we're all working in cannabis, but a lot of us are new businesses. We're all starting since legalization. So we're basically startups. We're all up against these insane regulations. Like, not only are we starting new businesses, but we're also constantly fighting every step of the way to try to gain some traction within this industry. With all that's happened, I would love to hear from you guys something that you're incredibly proud of.
Well, you know what? Just continue on that theme. Now, as within regulations, with the High Ladies Cannabis, trying to design the packaging was like a Rubik's Cube design challenge. There are 28 pages of regulations about what those labels look like. And it was insane. You can have a picture or a word, but not a picture and a word. You cannot show faces. You cannot show animals. You cannot show culture. You cannot show smoking. You should not show cannabis.
No cartoons.
Nothing to appeal to children.
No more than like 6 colors or 5 colors or
no
something.
Fluorescent colors. Basically everything our logo is went against regulations. So you can't even continue that. So we had to figure out, we ended up having our logo, blew it up, put that inside a word. Again, working in the gray, you can have a picture and a word, but not both. A picture or a word. So we put a picture inside a word. And then we were kind of on the edge there with colors. A few of them are gray tones. I'd like to consider that not a color as an artist. So like they're working within the gray. Then the THC warning has to be bigger than or the same size as your logo. The warnings have to take up 2/3. I think it was insane.
I'm very proud of you that you were able to accomplish that. And I'm also proud that you were able to, get part of the eye.
Part of an eye and part of a finger.
And part of a finger, right? And anybody who knows our logo would look at that and be like, I know exactly what that is. But nobody else. Like, it just looks like a super cool geometric-y color splash. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting through those regulations, whew.
I have a bit of an off-topic question for you, but I'm very interested now that you're talking about your logo. So you've done this logo, great job, something huge to be proud of. Like, fuck, can't even imagine, don't want to think about it. When regulations change, will you rebrand or update the brand to be what it was that your initial vision was, if that becomes a possibility? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure which way the regulation would change either, right? Because there is always the possibility that they come back and say, wait a second, we noticed this and now you need to change it.
Yeah, you can be pulled at any time. We love our original logo with the yin yang and the 2 high ladies. And that, for us, we've worked a lot on making that a recognizable brand. But we can only do that within our personal brand.
So, but I guess, like, yes, ultimately, if regulation changed and they were like, yeah, you can put anything on there, like,
and that will happen.
Right.
Like, if Snoop Dogg can be on a wine bottle, one day he should be allowed to be on a cannabis package.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for answering that. Now let's go back to the proud stuff. I also want to say, hi, ladies, that I'm proud of you guys for going on the morning show. Like, we don't see a lot of like women as faces that are proud in cannabis. We see a lot of like men who like don't give a fuck, you know, like that's kind of the so it's really, it meant a lot that you guys were willing to do that, because you are a bit putting yourself on the cross a little bit, right? Because I imagine I would be scared if I went on national television and spoke about cannabis, for sure.
That's probably one of the scariest things that I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, definitely. It was the final outing for me. Like, anybody who didn't know that I was involved in cannabis, like, you do now.
But if we're going to work towards breaking the stigma of cannabis use, having a very casual, nice conversation on a breakfast show, we made that a goal because we wanted to be able to show that this can be done in a civilized manner, where even if your children are in the room, nobody's going to get offended. We wrote them every month for a year and a half until we got the person to answer the email, and she fought for us.
Yeah, she did.
And I basically said, if you can have alcohol segment every day, you can have one cannabis segment, or stop it with the alcohol.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that fight.
Thank you for thanking that. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for recognizing that. Yeah, it was a very big moment for us.
It was. It was one of your initial goals with the podcast.
Yeah, I'm all about goals. So I like to do like a goal that's like really hard to obtain and one that's pretty easy to get there. So I'm always like chasing the goals.
Yeah.
And that was my like, this is an unattainable goal and I'm going to work towards it. So
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is so cool. So it was actually a goal of yours. That was like, you guys really went for it.
In the early, like before the podcast was, we used to be on our cell phones in our respective garages after school, like after homeschooling during COVID, and being like, one day we'll talk about this on national television. And yeah. And you really, it was you who made that happen. I didn't believe it was ever going to happen. I was like, yeah.
But that's okay with the unattainable goals, because if they never happen, they still have you going towards something.
Mm-hmm. And you pick up really cool shit along the way. Like on our journey to get on breakfast television, like we met and did really cool things on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're on to the other cool things.
Yeah, that what attainable is not the right word. It can't be attainable, but like it kind of is that bigger thing that like you're guiding to yourself there. That's your guiding light. But then all of these like cool things that are unexpected come in along the way.
What about you, Winnie? What's something you've done that you're incredibly proud of? Because you and 11 are working on some really fantastic big projects.
Thanks. I'm incredibly proud that I'm even here. When we started the podcast, it was out of like a lot of fear, honestly, and a lot of that, you guys know 11, so a lot of that was on my end. I was under the stigma. I didn't smoke weed in high school. I didn't judge people who did, but it was like I was like, oh no, like that's not me. Like huge alcohol drinker. Like I remember blacking out tons at like 14, 15 years old. I lived in small town Alberta, and that was the way. And I don't regret anything, obviously, but I just was like really under the stigma, even when I knew how good it was for me, and I knew how it like reconnected me back to myself, and it made me curious about what I want as a human being for the first time, I think, in my life. So like I love this plant, but for a really long time, up until probably legalization, I was hiding in the closets. Like no one would have known my love for cannabis. So I think I'm really proud to be in a place where I'm not looking for exterior validation in terms of cannabis. Like that's just like non-negotiable for me anymore. It's like if you don't like it, that's okay. We can talk about it, but like it's not going to diminish how I feel about myself. And so that's like a cool place to be.
Well, I think that's fantastic, Winnie. Honestly, we've met at a lot of events, as I've met many of you guys at a lot of events. And it's been, honestly, over the past few years, I feel like I'm like watching everyone grow, mutually. We're all watching each other rise up. And it's just really cool to see the authenticity that you bring to the cannabis space. You're a very authentic person. Your show is very genuine. And it's really cool to hear that background. That's where it's coming from.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude.
And I also just want to recognize and appreciate the trailblazers, because I was not one of them. So I'm in a very privileged place in cannabis. And I really, I want to recognize that, It's amazing that it's legal, and it's amazing that more people can feel more comfortable exploring the plant, because there is a exploration time, like just like when you're using pharmaceuticals and you have to do some trial and error before you might find something that really benefits you for whatever you're needing that for. Like cannabis is like, if you just smoke up once and like, yeah, you fuck around, like see things differently. But like it took me over the course of a couple years to really understand what cultivars make me a little antsy, what gives me energy, how this calms me, whatever it is, and also what's going on within me prior to smoking that might affect the high. So like there's trial and error for this sweet baby plant, and now I feel like people can be more comfortable than ever to actually go through that trial and error.
And I have so much respect for, like, I'm a high school stoner, so I got all of that kind of out of my system a little bit in a very juvenile way, as you do in high school. But I think, not to go too far into a weird place, but I didn't try psychedelics really until my more mature years. And I almost didn't because I thought, oh, I'm too old for that shit. And so for me, when people approach weed as adults, seniors, older people who were trained their whole lives of the stigma and to think of it a certain way, I have a lot of respect for people who come to the table with that whole new side of things. That's why I'm also a huge fan of Newbie and the Doobie, because you guys are bringing both perspectives as well to the space as grown-ass adults trying new things for the first time and being vulnerable about that.
Yeah, I'll segue right off of that, because that is literally the thing that I am the most proud of. And it's not so much the podcast, because like, it's funny, I don't know a lot about the disciplined stoners. I've just kind of been like the last couple of months following along, and everything I've seen, I've been like, this is it. Like, this is where it is. And I was like, I can follow this. I love your thoughts, your ideas. I love the Tuesdays that you guys do with the blunts and beans. I'm all for that. But like I can talk to cannabis people all day, every day about cannabis, but we all know similar things to a certain point where I want to talk to new people, this thirst of like putting this idea of cannabis as medicine into people's minds that are into medicine, but understand that, there is a way to use it, but not quite understand, to reach out to the newbies. So really having met Timmy and being able to like change his life and the way he perceives cannabis. Like, this man grew up in the church. He was going to be a pastor. He like preached against cannabis and yoga, I might add, which both he loves yoga, does it every day, can't live without it. I have a feeling that cannabis will one day take that place in his life as well. He just hasn't found the right method, because he tried smoking, and it creates this, it's the disassociation between brain and body. And it's like, it's a very uncomfortable feeling for somebody who's lived a very long time with no alcohol, no drugs, no any sort of stimulant. So like having him by my side to say, like, if I tell you cannabis is good, people are like, okay, pothead, stoner, whatever, like, of course. But when Timmy says it, I call him my agent 00710, because they're like, wait, you don't consume cannabis, but you're for it. Like, can you explain to me why you feel that way? And he'll tell you it's just from talking to other people and hearing their stories and why they use cannabis, and meeting people like Hi Ladies and Blunts and Beans, and just going to events like when we met you, Amanda. That actually was his first cannabis beverage that he had at Elevate. And I remember I drove home because he'd had a drink, and I'm the one that got the speeding ticket that night. And I was sober. He was not. He just kept going, why does my tongue feel heavy? I was like, babe, your muscles are relaxing. It's okay. Just take some water and lean your seat back. You'll be fine.
Oh my God, I love that so much. I knew he was new, but I didn't realize Timmy was like really coming from that place. So I actually love that he's coming to huge like Elevate wasn't like a little casual party. That was a massive expo with hundreds of people, and you guys were hosting.
Yeah, see, Timmy's like a sponge. He wants as much information about anything he's interested in as possible, and he'll like do charts and like whether it's his health, his diet, his sleep, anything. So he's an entertainer. So that's why you always see him rolling around on roller skates or, in some funky outfit or, yeah.
That's really cool. I think it's important to bring people into the space who are not familiar with the space. And I would say that cannabis is like a very friendly environment. It's not a cutthroat finance bro whiskey tasting scenario. This is like a very welcoming space. I know last summer I went to Camp Canna in Alberta, and I was pleasantly surprised to meet a handful of people who also didn't consume cannabis, who bought a ticket for an entire weekend with a bunch of stoners out in a field camping. And that was really like very cool to me to see that a space has been cultivated where really truly everyone should be there.
I think we have different things that we're most proud of, but on this journey together, I think that Camp Canna is my most proud of, like just in life, because throughout my life, I consumed in a closet. I would not ever tell my family that I smoked weed. I would never be authentic with them. I would smoke a doobie before I showed up so that I would just be stoned all the time so they wouldn't notice that I was actually stoned. Like I was like that kind of person. And back in those days, there wasn't things like cannabis beverages or like any sort of way to normalize it. It was always just the smell or the whatever. And so like I genuinely was not my authentic self at any point with anyone in my family. And so like I think that Camp Canna has really created this space for me to be my authentic self, but also like pull authenticity out of others because it creates an environment for them to feel safe enough to do so. And that significance is like what I strive for in life. And I think that that's right now, Camp Canna is that. And then the change, like how I, as a person, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm probably going to do it. Like, I'm just that person. I just like, there's no reason. This doesn't make sense. I'm going to figure it out. And that's kind of what I found through legalization was that like, none of this makes any sense. Like, none of it makes sense. You know, let's figure it out. Let's make it make sense. And so now it's like super cool because 3 years ago, they said we would never be allowed to have a coffee shop one day. And then this year at Camp Canna, we're going to have a retail store set up on site with their product available to sell and purchase right there, right next to our coffee bar. And it's like, I get that we can't have a coffee shop right now, but like we have a Blunts and Beans in this other avenue. And so I think that it's just like, it just kind of edifies the fact that there's literally nothing in this world that you can't accomplish. And sometimes you just have to look at it through a different lens and you can still get there.
I have to agree. You know, touching on what the High Ladies and Alexis said, there's no goal that is too big in life. So Alexis always says, shoot for the moon. And even if you don't make it, you're going to land among the stars. And sometimes the journey getting there is the best part. Camp Canna now, compared to what we thought when we first thought about it, it blows my mind. And it's so beautiful to see that we can create a safe place for people to come who don't consume cannabis, because those are the megaphones for the cannabis community, is the people who don't consume and go out there and correct people when they have stigma in their education around cannabis.
Are we going to hear yours, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. You know, this year's been tough. This year's been really tough for me. So I think I'm a little jealous of you guys because my co-host and Canna partner lives in Portland, Oregon. Although we do collaborate very extensively on tons of projects, and we've figured out this crazy way of doing stuff that seems to work for us, you know, like we do formulations. So we have to double order ingredients and have them sent to 2 different cities, make sure we have the exact same measuring tools, and we do video chats and do formulations and assess flavor and smell and stuff like that. So like me and Ryan have really done some crazy long distance contracts together, but it's lonely. It's really lonely being here by myself. You know, I go to events alone. I do a lot of media alone. And you know, I did go to Portland last year. So that was really cool because me and Ryan met through his old podcast, and that's what started our friendship. So we had never even met in person, and we had done over a year's worth of projects together. We launched the Cannabis Aroma Wheel without ever meeting in real life. Like, we did this massive, groundbreaking project for the industry without ever sitting in the same room together. So last summer, I flew out to Portland and we got to hang out for a week. And I got to meet his family and his community, you know, his cannabis community there. So I think for me, like, the Cannabis Aroma Wheel, not only in itself as a project, is like a decade of work that I've put into it to get there, like certifications and training to get to the point where I could do that, but also to do it internationally is really like, I still can't believe we pulled it off. Cause that was just a lot of back and forth and never being in the same room. Like, that's really crazy. So that's really crazy to think about. So yeah, the Aroma Wheel is something I'm wildly proud of this year. And also, yeah, just being able to run this kind of, I mean, calling it an international business sounds a little exotic, but it's across the border. So it's been pretty cool. I will say that because I'm sort of running this solo mission over here in Toronto, I would never be able to do it if it wasn't for other women in my life. And not to detract from the men, because, like, shout out to my co-host Ryan and all my besties who are guys, but, like, very genuinely, the only thing that keeps me going are the other women in my life. Full stop. I have calls with Blunts and Beans where I'm just like in tears and they're there just for me. I have my bandmates who live in the States who I call. There's a lot of women in my life who support me. I kind of want to hear from you guys. Like, do you have women, people in your life who like inspire you, who support you, who keep you going? Anyone you want to shout out?
Oh, I've got answers. I got a whole list because this is something where I'm like, I don't want to forget anybody because I'll be like that person who accepted the award speech. If I forgot you, it's not because I don't care. I don't love you. No, I'm just kidding. I did forget you. I don't love you. If you're not on this list, it's a joke too. I like to pretend I'm funny. Okay. So specifically in the cannabis space, there are two people that I like absolutely love for different reasons, of course. One is Mary Jane Rathbun. She was known as Brownie Mary. She literally used to bake like 600 brownies a day during the peak of the AIDS epidemic and give them away. Like she never made a profit. She was arrested a couple times. It's actually how she got in touch with the corporation that was the AIDS Corporation or whatever, is because in lieu of jail time, she did community service and connected her with all these people that needed medicine.
Wow.
So like for years and years and years, she had done this. So I'm like, I love baking with Mary Jane. That's literally why I changed my name to Mary Jane Baker. So that way people would know what I was doing, because I was helping patients at the time before we could buy edibles and, you know, teaching them how to make butter out of their flour, because I couldn't bring flour because that would be illegal. So I had to bring the machine. I had to bring the butter or the oil, you know, tell them how much cannabis to purchase. It was like, so yeah, definitely Brownie Mary. If you don't know who she is, there's a little bit of a history. The other one in the cannabis space is Jackie Chiles. She is a lot similar to the radio host here in town, Orlena Kane. They're about like a decade older than me, so I feel like I'm like always going to be chasing after what they've done. But the fact that they are, I want to make sure I get this right because I wrote this like 7 times, okay? They're unapologetically authentic while still being compassionate yet kind. They're driven and goal-oriented with the refusal to let things bring them down. They continue pushing, but to see that they're human, like Jackie, you guys see it. She'll post a post and you're like, fuck, she's having a down day. So you like send a little bit of love because I don't know, I feel this energy from people. And that's why as soon as you asked me to be part of this group, I was like, I love the energy with this group of women. And that leads me to my next and final point is the new people in the cannabis space that I get to meet that are not just energetically like connective with you, but also the fact that you see what they're doing and you see the advocacy and the education and the entertainment and the just the drive and the fact that you guys all do your own little things. Like, Alexis, I know you're a travel agent. A lot of you guys have children. Like, I know Winnie, your baby is your kitty. I've seen that too. But like, just the fact that we're all making change in this space. I'm so excited for all the names to come after. I feel like I'm kind of the old person in the group, not age-wise, but like advocacy. Like I've smoking weed for friggin' 25 years now. And like, I don't want you to do math or anything, but it's been like a really long time. And when it comes to girls that support me, I have a couple here that are in this chat. Within the industry, you guys have been a huge support. But like in my personal life, I am super blessed. I don't know a lot of other women that have this, but I have two besties that, sorry, Lexus, Jolene, it's not you guys. We video chat every single day. In the morning, I chat with one of them. In the afternoon, they both jump on. We've been doing this since COVID. Like 25 years I've known these women.
Wow.
Yeah. We talk about everything. I know everything about them. So, yeah.
I love that. Those are such great shout outs, Mary Jane. Especially, I think, like the online community right now of cannabis is so supportive. And we all know how much work goes into even just making an Instagram post. Like that doesn't take 1 minute. That might take half an hour. And like you're posting regularly. And it's like the amount of support that everyone's showing and the fact that we all know how much work goes into this. Every time Jackie reshares a post, that's her taking a little time out of her day to be a supporter. And I know I see her do it across the board.
Can I just add how difficult it is to be a woman in business? I don't care what business it is. When you write a massive, thought out, beautiful post and then people write these dirty, disgusting, are you married? That's a nice one, I'll just say. And it's kind of like, did you even read my post?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll shout out someone who means a lot to me, not in the cannabis space at all. Her name is Julie Zizek. She is branded as the corporate yogi online, and she helps bring a softer energy to corporate life. And she's a corporate coach, and she coaches leaders who are like, why aren't my employees listening to me? And she's like, because you are psychotic, but she doesn't say it in that way. She says it in a professional way. It's so cool to watch what she does and what type of change she brings. And she was the first person to call me out on what I wanted to do with my life. And actually, after I had a very short chat with her about embodying who I wanted to be before I was that person, like everything changed in my life. And so I really wanted to shout her out on this because she doesn't get enough love online, and her podcast is amazing. It's also called The Corporate Yogi. And someone who I really also want to shout out, who's been super supportive of me in my comedy career, is Puff Mama. She's a comedian and producer of comedy shows in Toronto, and she is legendary. She used to have the Underground Comedy 420, which was like a insane, the best place to go hotbox and watch comedy. It was so fucking fun. So I just those are my two. There's so many though. Oh my God, women are amazing.
Puff Mama, she really is Toronto legend. She's the OG. She's still doing comedy. I just saw her. Mike Rita did Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, which is Just for Laughs is national. It's massive. And they let us smoke weed at the event inside. Okay. So this was like a moment of history because we had Puff Mama on stage as well. She was one of the comedians of the night. And she used to allow smoking in her venue as well. So she's coming from the legacy, do what you want scene. But now she's performing on a national stage where they're smoking weed in the venue. Like that, I felt like I was a part of cannabis history because like we've been saying, you can get acknowledgement from the cannabis industry, and that's beautiful. But when something that isn't cannabis gives you the go-ahead, that is a breakthrough historic moment. So for Just for Laughs, who has nothing to do with pot, to bring her and Mike Rita and do this show, I was like absolutely wowed by it.
Yeah. That's, oh my gosh.
I just want to say that probably was more special than you know, because there's rumors coming through the pipe that JFL is going out of business. So that might have been the last and only like 420 JFL show.
Oh, I hope not, because that was such a blast. And what's cool is because it was just for laughs, people came to the show who had no idea that people were going to be smoking pot in the venue. Like if you've ever been to a Mike Rita or a Puff Mama show, you know people are going to be smoking. But the two people sitting next to me had got a season's pass or whatever, a weekend pass, and were like, oh, this looks like fun. I'm going to go check it out. And they were like, what the actual fuck? Everyone's smoking weed in here.
Oh, that's so fun.
It's quite something. Yeah. So it's cool to see. It's nice to see the legacy folks still find space.
Well, they've actually referenced Puff Mama's comedy club, The Underground, on the Joe Rogan show many times. Like it's like famous. You know that pot comedy place in Toronto? What's it called? The Underground? Yeah. With Puff Mama. Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Should we do our shout out?
I guess it's our turn.
When we started the podcast, we were deep in the pandemic. So all of our relationships were virtual. And it, like right from the beginning, from like 2 followers, 1 episode, those followers were our husbands. Every woman we reached out to, they were always more than willing to help us, even in ways that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
And there was one woman, Joanne Dugan, she's been on the podcast. Her page is Plan C Now. She's an emotional intelligence coach. And we definitely all needed a little bit of that during the pandemic.
Amen.
And when she first started talking to us, we ended up having weekly meetings.
Yeah.
And where she taught us how to breathe and how to talk ourselves down. And I use what she has taught us every single day.
Yes. And
she's in Massachusetts. You got to say it for me.
Bevo?
Massachusetts.
She's in Massachusetts.
I can't say that word.
Just outside of Boston. And she's the most wonderful human.
Yeah, and we got to meet her in person this year. She made a trip to Toronto to meet us.
Yep.
And that was magical because we'd have this 3-year-long virtual relationship. But she taught us how to Bebo, which is breathe in.
Breathe out.
It's not what's happening.
It's how you handle it.
My actions are a reflection
of my values, and all of my decisions are based on my values.
I love that.
Yeah, and at first
I laughed. I was like, oh, what is Beboing going to ever get? Like, fuck Beboing. Like, the world is ending. I've got 2 small children that they're going to be raised in a world that's the Mad Max.
Yep. And I
breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah.
I totally get it now.
Yeah.
Now that I can breathe.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people who, like, if you tell me to calm down, that's like the worst possible thing you could say to me. So, like, don't tell me to breathe. Fucking breathe if I want to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you.
But she really was all about, like, the fuck you. She's like, yeah, you should be angry and you should say fuck you.
But just breathe while you do it.
Smile, because
there's other
it will trick your brain into thinking that you're not so unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, it's so true. I've been implementing this fake smile thing when I'm like down in the dumps, and it gets to a point where you feel ridiculous, and somehow that shifts your energy, and then it actually makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So you're like, this is fucking, at first you're pissed, right? You're like, I'm fucking pissed. I don't want to do this. But this smile, if you smack it on your face, and like if it's not working, it's not working. But like give it a try. I think it works more than it doesn't.
Yeah, have you learned how to hug yourself though, Winnie?
I don't know.
So it's a pressure release. So you take your right hand onto your left shoulder, and it's just like you want to get all your fingers and your thumb over, and then you take your left hand and it goes around your side.
And kind of reach up in there to your
below your rib cage, and then take a deep breath, and you'll feel like it release,
and smile a little smile.
Yeah, it's and it works.
Yeah,
you know?
she's helped us in so many ways in our life.
And then, okay, if I had to,
our daughters
would be my other,
My daughter just brought
a note from school from my daughter that says, "Come pick me up."
COM, pick me up.
Yeah.
Having daughters is really beautiful, and seeing them come to this age. My daughter's 10, yours
is 11 on the weekend.
Yes. And they're turning into little women, and to see them, be so kind and just, they're such good, kind girls.
Yes. And this is like, they're in the 5th grade. They're in the same class this year.
They don't necessarily like each other.
Well, they don't like each other all the time. They like each other in
selectively.
Doses. Yeah. Right? Which, I mean, when you are in close proximity to anybody, right? Like,
you're telling me, Amanda.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things, like, you and I take breaks from each other.
We do.
Right? Because sometimes we've had enough of each other, but we're adults, and that's different, right? Like, when you're a kid, you're just stuck in a school with the same people, and you have to be kind of nice to them just to fucking survive. So, like, I get it, but they inspire me. And sort of like the new generation of girls coming up, as irritating as I find some children, many children, most children, mine included, it's exciting when I see their brains working and they get excited about something. They're independent and they're excited to tell me about something that they've learned or done, and, what their dreams and hopes for the future are. It's those conversations that give me hope that, like, we're not fucked. There are still women out there who are excited for the future
and will taking on the world.
Yeah, and will lead us there.
I love that. Hi, ladies, what you said, Annie and Amanda, about your children. I can reflect that. My daughter's only 7, but she's like the most passionate wild beast there ever was in life. And I think that inspires me to be passionate and wild sometimes, because, there was an instance we were in Jamaica. We were on a perfectly running boat in the middle of the ocean in the pitch black darkness, and we were about to jump off of this boat because why? I couldn't even think in the moment, but it was because the bioluminescence was there and the water was going to glow, and it was like a once in a lifetime experience. There was no moon in the sky, and I was like in my head thinking of all the ways that I could talk my 7-year-old out of jumping into the ocean at nighttime to do this, because I was so scared. And she ripped her clothes off in like half a second. She's like, "I'm going in without you." And I was like, obviously I can't send my 7-year-old daughter into the ocean at nighttime alone. I have to go with her. And like, because of that, I've just like found this new like strength in myself that to overcome fear. And this industry can be so scary. Like, there's really no stable ground. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you are one of us or whether you are an LP or a retailer or a bud tender, literally any role in this industry, it's unstable. The foundation hasn't been made stable yet. And so like, that's a lot of fear. And so for me, like, my women inspiration is just like the solidarity amongst women in this industry. Like, I know that I can reach out to so many different women and pull strength from them when I need it. And I think that that's like the most empowering part about women in cannabis and women in life, is that, when we're operating maybe not at our best, we can always reach out and pull strength from another, and we're willing to give that strength when it's our turn to be called on.
Yeah, I just want to, before Jolene answers, I just want to touch on what you mentioned about your daughter, because I know I've brought it up to the Hi Ladies. I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but I know that you do a really good job of managing both the industry and making sure that your children still get what they need. And you guys are dealing with younger children. Like, I have a kid that's about to turn 20 and one that's like 15 or 16. I don't remember. They keep growing every year and whatever. They take care of themselves pretty much now. But that's my point. They take care of themselves pretty much now. They're self-sufficient. They need less from me. So I'm really proud that you guys are still able to make such an impact within life, and to show your kids, you know, you can be successful and you can raise a family and you can do it and be happy.
We're definitely blessed because there is beautiful souls like you in the community for us to look up to. I mean, throughout history, there are so many incredible women who, you know, have fought for cannabis and their stance on it, even when it was a stigma and you could go to jail, but they seen the medicine in it and the value it provided. And I also feel super blessed since starting Blunts and Beans. I had no idea how many amazing women I was going to be introduced to, whether they're saving their children from cannabis or advocating or just being a voice and a platform for how amazing it can be. Also, I wanted to shout out in my personal life all the amazing, fierce women at my table who I'm blessed to be able to call weekly, and some that I'm not because they've gone. I've been blessed throughout my life because I have generations of women who came from times where women didn't get to have a voice and worked in male-dominant industries and wore pants when they wanted to wear pants and were badass homemakers, and they led a path, you know, that I get to follow. So I'm thankful for that. And my mama and also my two beautiful daughters. It's wild to me to think that I have kids in grade 9 and 10 next year that are little girls, and I'm so blessed with what they've grown up to be. When I think about what I was up to at their age and where my mindset was, and then to see these beautiful women that they've already grown into, and they're so responsible and keeping me in check. And you know, people always say that they would die for their children, but I'm a firm believer in truly living for your child to your full potential.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I tried to get adopted by Jolene this summer.
I fed her cookies one time.
She made me Lunchables, and I sat at the kitchen table with the kids. And
I think Timmy probably asked to be adopted by Jolene too.
are we all just moving to Alberta? Is that?
We could just all move in together. It would be fun.
I love it.
We could buy a castle.
And a cow.
We need 2 cows. At least.
Count me in. Count me in. Well, honestly, guys, I really genuinely, like Alexis just said, I feel like I could call any one of you guys on the fly and you would be there. I love that working in the industry, we're all doing podcasts and media, and we're always collaborating. And honestly, like, it almost gives me chills because the level of collaboration is just like so fucking epic. I kind of want to end today by maybe just quickly going around and shouting out any projects that you're working on, because I want to support you guys more. And I bet our listeners do too. Let's make Blunts and Beans go first, because they've been hiding like the letter Z, like their last name starts with a fucking Z over there, watching everyone else go first.
We have a lot of projects going on right now, but I would like to shout out the fact that we were invited to speak at a women's panel, a women's event this Saturday, and I'm super excited about that, to be now in a place where we're being offered a seat at the table, even with groups that we aren't really intermingled with. So I'm really excited to meet some other amazing women this weekend. And then I'm even more excited because I'm going to see all of you guys in person right away at the Can Expo, which is an event put on by a mother-daughter duo, which is super great. So I'm really excited about that. Then we'll be back for Camp Canna, Ontario. Whole bunch of things going on this year, but yeah, it's a lot.
If you want to know more, though, you can always check us out on social media or online, Camp Canna or Blunts and Beans.
Also, like a quick little shout out to Can Expo, because it is a mother-daughter duo. Kathy and Kelly are fucking awesome. It's the next big event we'll all probably be at. So I just want to tell people, make sure you get your tickets and come say hi to all of us in person.
And don't forget to stop at the Camp Canna activation that they're going to have at Can Expo. I'm super excited about that. Little like joint rolling competition. Some just like samples of what you're going to do at Camp Canna, which I'm super excited about too, because like, I don't know if I mentioned, as entertainers, like Timmy does comedy, I'm doing trivia and karaoke and like private events, pubs, that sort of thing. We're like available for hire and going to all these events. And like, yeah, Camp Canna is definitely on the list. Can Expo's on the list. Still like undecided about 420 because everybody and their dog throw something on 420. But I will say I am working on putting together a really, really awesome global marijuana march because I feel like my heart is in the activism. It's in the advocacy. You know, it's great that it's legalized, but we're all still bitching about something or another within this space and we want to change the rules. So I'm like, if you're in or around the Toronto area, get your butt to Queen's Park North on May 4th. You can't forget, may the 4th be with you and may you be with us. Queen's Park North.
Love that. Do you want to shout out your socials?
Oh, yeah. I was like, check out the Newbie and the Doobie.
Should we go? What are we up to?
what are we up
to? We're always, trying to get the High Ladies Cannabis out there. So go to your local dispensary. If they don't have Kanja products, they don't have High Ladies, ask them to order it in. We're going to be at Camp Canna. We are super excited about that.
Oh, yes. We're going to have a cabin. So anybody going to Camp Canna, feel free to put in High Ladies Cabin.
We're training for the Can Olympics daily, sometimes hourly, depending on my stress levels, but I'm always training.
We've got the wind tunnel set up.
Oh, shit. You guys are going to be some serious competition. I thought it was going to be a sweeping win for me this year.
Oh, no. We already know. We have to feed you pineapple or something, or kiwi.
I am allergic to pineapple, yes. That is what I lost last time. Oh, now my secret's out. My kryptonite. Fucking pineapple.
It's actually good to know. I'll keep pineapple away from you.
Leave it for us to do that. Yeah, we're always putting out new podcasts and finding new, really interesting people to interview. So you can find High Ladies Podcast on all listening platforms. Or
on Instagram at High Ladies Podcast.
I feel like we're doing the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and review.
And don't forget to share with a friend.
Isn't that the worst part of podcasting is really having to put that in at the end of every show? Do you guys hate that too? So cringy to have a guest on and then have to do all the little spiel at the end.
Yeah, I had a guest call us out on it, and he is a very successful YouTuber, and he is like, if they wanted to subscribe, you wouldn't have to ask. Like, they would do it without you asking. And I was like, bro, you just blew my mind.
It's so true. I'm always like, leave a review, but I don't know how to leave a review. Like, I've never figured that out, but I'm always begging people to leave a review. We're like, I don't know how to do it.
Wait a minute, you haven't even reviewed our own podcast?
I don't have a account.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and that they don't make it easy to, like, the Apple review is not easy to do. No. It's like you have to go through a whole thing.
Oh yeah, I gave us 5 stars on Spotify.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because I always forget to do that. Like, we have like the photo that plays. It was like follow and it says like our socials, but yeah, we just end it with the music after like we fade out. It was like, that's it. We hate editing. That's why Timmy's like, whatever you say will be used against you. He just chops off the beginning, chops off the end, and throws in the music. Because when you're doing all of this stuff yourself and you don't have a team behind you, which I'm assuming a lot of you guys are like a team. That's it. It's a small team, just you, like 1 or 2 people. Well, Amanda, you even confessed it's like 2 people, but it's one. It's one. So it's not easy.
Just me hanging out here. But I will say, Ryan did offer to do the whole write-up, and he does all the posting. So even though he's not in this episode, he's an ally, and he's going to still do his half of the work, even though I told him he wasn't invited today. So
shout out.
That's awesome. See, I find those are the ones that work the best together is when you can find that synergy of like, what do you hate to do? And what, like, if it aligns with what the other person is good at, it's like, hey, I don't like editing. They're like, oh, I love editing. Or I can do that. So I know I see Blunts and Beans have a great dynamic. High Ladies Podcast. I know, Winnie, you said you were a little nervous at the beginning with starting your podcast with 11, but it's clearly worked. Like, you guys have this energy that not just works well together, but other people resonate with. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. I love doing it. It's fun. It's a fun thing where I'm like, when I'm 80 and I can look back on all of these conversations, like I think that'll be really cool and special. It'll be the new photo album. Yeah. I'm teaching some yoga at Camp Canna at Can Expo. So I wanted to let anyone know that happens at 11 a.m. every day. And it's not going to be like a sweaty yoga class. It's going to be like more stretching. And yeah, just more stretching. And we're hosting the stage. The Disciplined Stoners is hosting the stage. I think both of us really love entertaining and want to be entertainers. So we're working on how to create more short form content to build a bigger audience on Instagram. And I'm working on my stand-up set. I want a great set. That's my only goal, is to have like a great half an hour right now. So I get to perform at the seasonal sesh with Blunts and Beans in April. Super stoked about that. Thank you for having me and us. And that's all.
And what, do you want to shout out your handles?
Disciplined Stoners and Winnie Clark.
Nice. I guess I'll go last. And so I definitely find the podcast, The Smoking Spot. You're already listening to it, so I'm pretty sure you found it. Coming up, I'm hosting a cannabis literary showcase. It's the first of its kind. I have all my bookshelves set up behind me. We have 50 publications that are going to be on display for people to read. It's just a free library. I've cultivated a cannabis library for people to enjoy. I've had immense support from publications like local authors, local magazines. Some American folks have come through. We even have one cookbook in Spanish, which is fantastic. Like, they're so hard to find. Some psychedelic stuff there as well. And yeah, so I really appreciate that. And if anyone, for me, a big thing is the aroma wheel. Like, I spent so much time working on it, and I feel like it just barely rippled in the void that is the internet. So everyone who has shared it, I see you. Anyone who has bought one, I see you. I appreciate you. And I just hope that people continue to enjoy it and use it. So that's me. And I'm stoked. And my Instagram's at emerald.temple.living or at The Smoking Spot. You guys got a sign off for us?
Stay lifted and keep on laughing.
Well, what's ours? Stay high, ladies. No,
it's not.
What's ours? Oh,
Hi, ladies.
If you haven't already, try meditation.
I feel like that's just good advice.
Blunts and Beans.
Rolled upper ground from sun up to sundown. Blunts and Beans has got you.
That was out of control. What the fuck?
That's really good.
That sounded like at the beginning of in a world.
In a world where two moms needed to stay sane, cannabis and coffee saved them.
yes.
One time we were making a slogan, we were like, oh my God, we need a slogan. And I spit that out of my brain, and Jolene has documented and fucking kept track of that shit for the last 30 years. It is never going to leave me. It's still haunting me, just so you know.
Oh, that's so good.
Sexy, subtle, that was awesome.
Thank you guys so much for today. My heart grew 3 sizes.
It's been wonderful, ladies. All of you. It's so great to be part of this community. I'm really glad you did this, Amanda. Thank you for putting this on.
Thanks for coming.
Well done.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find a smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find a smoking spot.
Hey, Smoking Spot fans. We're here to tell you about the newest launch from Centelligence Projects.
Over the last year, we've created the Cannabis Aroma Wheel. It's a sensory tool designed to help connoisseurs take their knowledge to the next level. So whether you're a bud tender, dispensary owner, cultivator, or you just love the smell of weed, you can better appreciate the cannabis in front of you.
Get your copy of the most detailed sensory tool built specifically for the cannabis industry and order your Cannabis Aroma Wheel today at centelligenceproject.com.